Great Axe is great now, and it's going to be good after the nerfs. I like the warrior playstyle, and I'm sticking with it. Hey everyone, I'm Barkley, and this will be my build guide update for patch 1.1, with some ideas for the next patch with the PTR notes in mind. In this video, I'll go over ability and mastery setups, attribute distributions, weapon and armor perks, and wrap it up with some final thoughts explaining how I think the playstyle is going to change and why Great Axe will still have a place in PvP. Let's start with the abilities and masteries. I'm not going to go too deep into general passives because most of them are really simple, and I've explained them in other videos. For the Great Axe, there's two options I use. For build 1, I'm going Charge, Reap, and Gravity Well for general use, and when I'm not playing on point in wars. You can pick Maelstrom here instead of Gravity Well. It's a solid pick, I just got tired of getting staggered out of it. Reap's damage is getting nerfed to 70% weapon damage, but the spin attack is still 110%. Bloodlust is getting nerfed from 30 to 20% movement speed, but I'm still picking up both. I've done some dueling on PTR with this build and wasn't disappointed. I was hoping to get some outpost rush footage, but I had no luck. That being said, this build will always be a consistent setup. Build 2 will be a stand-on point build with Reap, Maelstrom, and Gravity Well. The mobility will be lower, but your goal with this build is to be on point, setting up Sundering Shockwave Wrens into insatiable Gravity Wells, using Maelstrom, and throwing out Path of Destinies. So you won't need the mobility since people will always be on point. For the Warhammer build, you have two main choices. Are you running Wrecking Ball or Clear Out? In most cases, I run Wrecking Ball with build 1, since the 7-second fortify is huge, and I'll sometimes keep my Warhammer out just for that damage reduction. And Clear Out is used on point in wars to knock people off. For your attribute distribution, you're aiming for a 300 strength, 200 constitution spread. I'm not there yet, so when I'm running medium, I'm going for 300 strength first, and then putting the rest in constitution. And when I'm running heavy gear, I go for the 200 constitution first. Both medium and heavy are competitive. I just go heavy when I'm standing on point in wars, and medium for all the other times. You can play medium on point, but it requires more skill and the payoff isn't really that big. Currently, you can play heavy all the time and not get punished for it. But I do predict that medium and light builds are going to get more play with the lunge nerf. Now let's move into the weapon and armor perks. So with this, I wanted to change it up and make a priority list. Most of the perks that were listed I find to be relatively close in terms of viability, and I don't think there's a list that could be made that everyone would agree on, but this is what I felt would be the closest, and this format is easy to put into an infographic. I won't go over every option, but I do want to discuss a few things in each category. And tell me what you thought about this in the comments, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask away. Also, if you're enjoying the video so far, like the video and subscribe to the channel, it's much appreciated. Let's get back to it. For skill perks, ideally you want these on armor and not weapons. Also keep in mind skill perks do not stack. The priority list for skill perks goes as follows: Insatiable Gravity Well, Enfeebling Maelstrom, Sundering Shockwave, Leeching Path of Destiny, Crippling Reap, and Repulsing Clear Out. The first three are mandatory if you have the respective ability. Insatiable Gravity Well happens to be one of the few perks in the game that gives you both damage and healing. The only downside is that it only seems to give you the extra damage if someone is directly in the middle of your Gravity Well. So there's times I'll reap people into the middle just for the extra damage. Enfeebling Maelstrom is just a nice consistent perk, there's not a lot to say about it. Sundering Shockwave was nerfed, but it's still a very good perk overall. An AoE rend will never be bad. Now that skill perks are out the way, let's move into your weapons. Now for Great Axe, my list would go Enchanted, Keen, Keenly Empowered, Vicious, Lifesteal, Keenly Jagged, Keenly Fortified, and Rogue. Enchanted is a top tier pick and the biggest damage increase overall if most of your damage is coming from light and heavy attacks. Keen speaks for itself, and Keenly Empowered is over Vicious because you can't have Vicious and Enchanted at the same time. Warhammer perks are Keen, Vicious, Lifesteal, Refreshing Move, Enchanted, Keenly Empowered, and Keenly Fortified. So it's the same thing here more or less. The main difference is that I don't try to keep my hammer out after my abilities have been used, so I don't value Enchanted as highly. Refreshing Move has the same issue, but I'd be using it to get my abilities back faster. Now for the new perks, I'd put Plague perks over any proc perk, and the Thwarting perks can easily compete with Enchanted in terms of damage, but the fully charged heavy attack perks don't seem that hype to me on paper. For armor perks, the list goes as follows: the mandatory skill perks, Resilience, Refreshing, Invigorating, other skill perks, Freedom, and Vigor. The mandatory skill perks buff the most impactful abilities in your kit. Resilience and Refreshing are neck and neck for me. It's an offense versus defense preference. Invigorating was a weird one for me to place, but it does have potential to go up next patch with new perks and more people moving to Void Gauntlet. For the new armor perks, I hope they get nerfed. In the current state of things, I think they're overpowered. A safe place to put them is tied with Resilience and Refreshing. Since you can potentially have all three on one piece of armor, it could end up being number 1. For your ring, you got keen awareness, slash damage, hardy if you're heavy or light, refreshing, leeching, hardy if you're medium, refreshing evasion, and refreshing ward. You want a damage perk on your ring, it's invaluable. If you're in heavy or light, hardy gives you a third dodge roll, once again, invaluable. Then the last perk is survivability or cooldown reduction. Moving into your earrings, the perks are mostly about healing and cooldown reduction, so your list ends up like this: refreshing toast, regenerating, refreshing, purifying toast, healthy toast, nimble, refreshing evasion, refreshing ward, and duplicating toast, but that's purely for quality of life. For amulet perks, we got health, divine, refreshing, purify, refreshing evasion, refreshing ward, fortified recovery, empowered, and fortified. With this build, you're probably getting around 1000 HP from the health perk, which is a really big deal when you're playing a tankier build. I could see divine moving down next patch, but right now it's really good. Purify I haven't got to play with, but on paper it's seeming like a really good perk that only gets better next patch. And that's it for the perks. For the gems and my armor, right now I'm all Onyx, but I do think Void Gauntlet is going to force me to pick up more magic resist. For weapon gems, I'm sticking with Opal. I can see Emerald, I can see Aquamarine, Jasper is getting buffed, and I'll try that out, but I would bet on Opal staying the best pick overall. All of this information will be available on an infographic in my Discord or on my Twitch channel, with the command on screen, !GA build 1.1. I go live a few times a week, so if you want to catch me live, follow me there. Now, when talking about Great Axe viability for the next patch, you will be weaker, but still very competitive. The Great Axe Warhammer build will still be a meta pick for wars. Worst case, you'll be brought just for the ability to spam CC on point, and still do good damage while being hard to kill. The ability to dual range build is where the nerfs will hit the hardest. The playstyle changes into you being more mindful of how close you are to your target, and being mindful of when to chase and when not to. You can't mindlessly chase people anymore, which is fine. Overall, I think the game is going to be in a more balanced state next patch. Right now it's too early to tell for sure, but I'm being optimistic right now. Great Axe has more room for error, and is worse at dueling, but group play it's still very strong. I predict there will be situations when you swap out of Warhammer to do things like dual ranged and chase. Sword will be my first choice to use in that role, since even with a round shield I can still block range damage and manage my stamina easily. For the future, I'm thinking about doing quick build update videos and discuss changes in the build based off of the current meta and builds I'm seeing every few weeks. Tell me what you guys think about that. And that's it for the video. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, do me a favor, comment, like, and subscribe. It does wonders for the algorithm, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.